I'd like to talk about personal responsibility this morning, but first I'd like to blame the reason that I'm late on my Postmate. My Postmate Richard said he was going to be at my house by 8:45 this morning because I recently, since I got back from my trip, found out that you can now get Air One on Postmates, which is a really dangerous situation, and so it's been real wild. It's a constant stream of Postmates from Air One at my house. But so, Richard really let me down this morning, and it's his fault that I'm late. Okay, on to personal responsibility. So I'm going to read you some teachings. Yogi Bhajan, he talks about the executive mind. This is totally the way that Yogi Bhajan spoke, this is why these teachings, I believe, in many ways, have not really been applied, which is our job. When we're very interested in that here at Rama Institute for Applied Yogic and Yogic Science and Technology. But they're very kind of riddly, we'll say. So let me riddle you this. Okay, he says, basically, when you work, you are a clerk. When you get the work done, executive has begun. He's a poet. When you work, you are a clerk. When you get the work done, executive has begun. An executive who does the work himself or herself is a clerk. Executive is to get work done. Executive is not to micromanage the work or to work themselves. Executive which works is a jerk. That's a clerk. It's no good. Executive job is to get the job done. Do you understand what I'm saying? No. That's a common thing in the Yogi Bhajan teachings. Do you understand what I'm saying? Then he answers the question. No, you don't. You think you work, you are great, right? Well, dig trenches. You are not working. You know the people you meet in businesses. We call it briefing session. A few executives plan the work, they call everybody, and they brief them. Now, this is how it works. And so he gives an equation for this. He says, brief, action, report of casualty and success, and retrial, which is like, okay, what? So number one, brief. It means you already have a strategy, and you just brief everyone. You tell them what to do. So, in my opinion, and I talked a lot about this in the past couple of weeks, having an executive mindset has nothing to do with what your job is or whether you have your own business or because if you run your household, like say you're a stay-at-home parent, if you run your household with an executive mindset, you're going to have a much different experience of running the household. If you run your team with an executive mindset, if you run your life with an executive mindset, which I posted that thing on social this morning about, basically being professional and having dignity, no matter what you're doing. You could be digging trenches. You could be, whatever. This language is a little old because we don't really use that word clerk anymore. But it's good for the rhyme. It is. If you have the neurology of a clerk, you are a jerk. I'll put it that way. It's good for the rhyme. Anything for the rhyme. Anything for the flow. But so the brief, it means you already have a strategy and you just brief everyone. You tell them what to do, which means that you have to have your aura around it. This is what really the yogic technology of growing into a kind of executive of whatever, whether it's the executive of your day, which is why we do our practice, so that we can execute our day in a way that's efficient, in a way that's fulfilling, in a way that's means something to us and others, because as humans, we're meaning makers. So if you can execute your day in that way, and that's why we do something in the morning to help us to get clear enough to be able to execute right action, execute our time-space continuum, execute our moods, our emotions. All of that is an executive mind. So you can use these teachings in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't have to be in the business setting. Now, Yogi Bhajan was really interesting because Hadi Jivan said this, and I had heard it, but I had forgotten it. Yogi Bhajan came to America with $37, and he never spent it. The day he died, he had the $37 that he came to America with. And he was multi-millionaire. And so that's the Yogi Bhajan. He was very, very into planning, that you plan, and then you have another plan, and then you have another plan, and then you have 4 plans. You have A, B, C, and D, so the one that you're executing now, and then 3 backup plans. And I talked about this over the weekend at Camp Grace, and some in Mallorca. We don't plan for our success, and therefore, we do plan for our failure, though, don't we? I mean, everyone obsessively planning for their failure and thinking about how they're going to fail and, what to do and all those kinds of things. But we're not planning for our success. Therefore, we have so many examples of people who get successful and they don't know what to do with it, and they're totally crippled by their success in one way or another. They're either, so stressed out they're having a nervous breakdown, or the fame or the psychic pressure of being in the public eye makes them, have whatever mental, emotional, and other problems. Or we have, a lot of people who kind of get successful in the early part of their life because of whatever the demands of the career. Professional athletes are definitely in this or in the entertainment business, and they don't plan for the success and then the management of that success. And by the time they're, in their mid-30s, they don't have any money. That's very common. So it means you brief, number 1. It means you have a strategy, you brief everyone, you tell them what to do. That's executive mind. 2, action. There are 3 layers of action. Action, cover, and support. Action, cover, and support. Otherwise, there's no action. Support, it means one is covered immediately. Third is to support the whole action. In case the first fails, the second should not. If the second fails, the third should not. So in this case, he's giving you 3. So you have the action, then you have cover for the action. So say you gave delegation to whoever in your household, right? You gave delegation, then there's cover to that action, meaning you're already planning for them, whether they're going to actually be able to execute what you gave them or not. God, I wish Shivapreet was here. We're going to have to make her listen to this. So you already have, because you can't do it yourself. If you really are, if you're actually going to do something it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's business or something else, you can't do it yourself. Teamwork makes the dream work. So it's all teamwork, always, no matter what, whether you're making a film or you're making a beautiful day with your family, or it's all teamwork. So you have action. Then you have cover for the assumption that there will be people in your plan that are not going to execute as planned. So that's already planned for, because what's the third thing? Support. Now, Hadiji always tells me, if you ask someone to do something 3 times and they don't do it, they either can't do it or they either cannot do it. They don't have the capacity to do it, or they don't want to do it. So you just never ask them more than 3 times. Beyond that, you're either dealing with a subconscious block, which is not your problem, it's theirs, or you're dealing with actually they cannot do it. And this is common in relationship with women and men. Women like to ask men to do things that is actually impossible for their neurology to do in that moment or beyond that moment. And then they like to get angry at them and resent them and act out. It's a very common relational issue, whether it's a heteronormative relationship, like a romantic relationship, or anything else. You'll find, and that's why, a lot of times women will be like, the guy is so angry. But one of the reasons he's angry is because he's being asked to do something because of the way that the neurology of the male brain works that he cannot do in that moment, because it's too many things, or because the male mind is very one penetrative kind of thing at a time. So, and you just have to understand how that works, both as a man and as a woman. You have to understand how that works. So that oftentimes in teams, and we have it around here, Robbie's like, right, Robbie? I can't see your face. You're behind the computer. Robbie's like, I saw you like take off the hat, like shake your head. Robbie knows exactly what I'm talking about. He's like, all these women around here, just, and the thing is that if you understand the differences between the way people work, this is leadership. Whether it's, you can put it into gender, because there is a difference between the male brain and the female brain. If you don't like it there, you can just put it into everyone has a different way that they need to be communicated to and led. And if you're a good leader, you know how to do, you understand that like this, and and if they don't do it after asking them 3 times, they either cannot do it or they don't want to do it. And if they don't want to do it, usually it's subconscious, not conscious. So as an executive, are you going to spend any more time on that? No, you give them something that they're going to win at. But this is priceless advice. I know you get it out there, Rama TV. I have to believe that. This is priceless because if you know how many people are banging their heads up against the wall because they keep on asking someone, and this is most relationship problems are this. You keep on asking the person to do something they are not capable of doing. And you're not focusing on the things they are capable of doing and exalting them and acknowledging them and praising them and elevating them for those things. That's basically relationship problems in a nutshell. So number 3, so we have our action, cover, and support. So you've already planned that these people, whoever you've executed the plan to, they're not going to be able to do it. A couple of them are going to fail in the execution or not quite make it. So then you have the 3rd, and that's support for those people. So you've already kind of planned that out. That's a triple threat. Number 3, report of casualty and success. So account for the loss and the gain. That's why we count the casualty and the gain. So you're counting for the loss and the gain, but you've already planned for that. You've planned for the loss and the gain. Now, anybody who's taking any kind of creative risks, entrepreneurial risks, or otherwise, anybody who's on kind of the avant-garde or a trailblazer of any sort, you're reporting the casualty and success, and you've already thought in your mind, okay, so, this is what all the stores in Abbot-Kinney are doing. What do you think they're doing? They're all hemorrhaging money. Nobody's making any money on these brick and mortars. Not one, but you've reported the casualty and the loss. Is it worth the address? Is it worth the walk traffic? Is it worth the cachet on the, what is that worth in terms of brand value? And if you've reported the casualty and the loss already, you've already, figured out that the casualty is worth the loss. And the gain is worth the loss, basically. And that's, and that's something that really intelligent executors understand. Because that stuff is intuitive. That stuff is, and that's the same, say you're in the financial sector, this is very intuitive stuff to understand. Of course, there's also a bottom line, but it's an intuitive kind of thing to be like, all right, what's the value of the hemorrhage, whatever that is, or the marketing, or you can look at it a bunch of different ways, but whoever's moving into Abbot-Kinney, there's no possible way anybody's making money there anymore. For quite some time. Now Lincoln Boulevard, at least my landlords think Lincoln Boulevard's like that. It's funny. But I had to make a choice. I fought with them for 18 months about this place because I'm the one who brought this whole neighborhood up. And when I got the place, it was a porn shop. And with bars on the windows. It was like a massage parlor. I don't know. Before that, it was an internet cafe or something. It was super sketchy. And this whole, it still is sketchy. So we brought the whole neighborhood up, basically. So now, market value. But you have to decide, you want to keep the business in the same place? I did. Because, hopefully our next move is to a university kind of level. And so I want to keep the place in the same place. I have to fight with these, kind of nouveau douches of Venice to, deal with what they think is market value, but that you're reporting the nouveau douche. Write that one down for our t-shirt line. But, I have some really good new t-shirts we're gonna roll out. So you have to decide what are the casualties and what is it worth? Because keeping your business in the same place is a really big value. It is. People are used to something. So that's number 3. Then number 4, this is a total Yogi Bhajan term, retrial. So the idea is the executive who works is a clerk, that mindset. And the executive who gets the work done, that's where the executive has begun. The job is done, the executive has begun. Executive is to get the work done. That kind of executive is is basically a powerful executive. So this is what he calls, that quote is from what he calls retrial. So what I would say about that is basically, grade yourself. You gotta kind of look at like, okay, how did I do on that? Because delegation is one of the hardest things to learn. It's really hard. It's one of the hardest things to master, because what you're doing in the aura is you're basically holding the thing in the aura just like you would do the work yourself, but you're basically holding the thing energetically and vibrationally like you would do the work yourself, but you're animating another body to do it. It's total AI. If you're a good executive, that's what you're doing. You're basically, you're holding all these kind of people in your aura and you're animating them to get the job done, which is hard. So it's not like you're not working, you're just doing a different type of work. And anybody can do that on any level of where, whether you're working at a entry-level position, or whether you own your own business, or whether you're, managing your life or whatever. I mean, all those things are you can, because even managing your life, that's the Aquarian economy. And that's why I think it's worth kind of fraternizing some of these, the Ubers, the Postmates, the Instacarts of it all, because it really does allow for people who may have been kind of phased out of other jobs. I feel like the older community is really getting an opportunity, because I've noticed this lately where a lot of my Uber drivers, Postmates, and that kind of thing are older people. It's really cool. So, all right, I'd like to work a little bit on this executive mindset. We're talking about all these things as we lead up to the Rama Business School, and work to do this, because this is going to really power your life in a different way. You're going to get so much more done, and that whole idea that like whatever you have to do during the day may or may not be the thing that you think you want to be doing. If you get into executive mindset, you're going to be able to get more done and have more energy. So therefore, if there's another project you want to work on, you'll have the energy to do that. Do we get that? Which is always my Gary Vee kind of quote, where he's like, you got to ask yourself, what are you doing from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m.? But that, if we don't have energy for that if we're not in an executive mindset of no matter what we're up to or what we're doing. And that's an auric capacity. In the yogic science, it's an energetic and auric kind of capacity to hold and cover and support and plan efficiently. And you have all those people like the natural entrepreneurs who are young. It's like you've asked them, you hear these stories where it's like, I think this is a Branson story or whatever. He had a newspaper route, and then it got so big. He already, like within like a month, he had hired like 5 people. They were running the routes with him. He was paying them less than he was making. He was turning a profit. I mean, that's executive mind. And you either are inborn with it. So some people like the Bransons and some natural entrepreneurs have that kind of executive mindset, or you have to learn it. And in the yogic science, it's an auric capacity. The aura grows to kind of support. And if you say you're a parent, if you have this capacity in your children or in your aura this way, they're not going to, this is very interesting. There was, these 2 ladies who were going at it, and they were fighting. And anytime Patti Javan came around, they couldn't fight. And the quote was basically, in his aura, we cannot fight. Like, we just can't seem to get it together. Well, that's an auric capacity that you can have with your children. Say your children fight a lot, or say, maybe one of your kids is going down the wrong path. If you have an executive mind with them, you're gonna be able to hold them in the aura in a very kind of powerful way, and make sure that whatever you can do, because you can't, they have their own dignity, they have their own fate and destiny, so they're gonna do what they do. But you can hold them there in a very kind of executive mind way, just like you would hold an employee or anyone else, except you just love them more. And you have an inborn connection to them because of the kind of genetic thing. So you can hold them there, and you can help to kind of cover and support the decisions they're making, and what and a lot can happen there, way more than people think. So it's an important, because oftentimes what happens is we're just worrying. and worrying. And worry in the aura, whether you're worrying about money or you're worrying about some other thing, worrying about a kid, worry in the aura is quite destructive. It's very depleting, and it's not a constructive energy. And I remember, the first year or so that we opened this place, Hadijivan just looked at me. He's like, the worry, you got to work on the worry in your aura, because it's not going to help anything. And I remember I just grokked that. I was like, wow, it's very important, because it's so hard not to worry about the kid or about the creation or about the, it's inborn in a lot of our kind of conditioning to worry, that's kind of our only, instead of pray and kind of project, the only thing we can do is worry, which is not true. Okay, so let's work a little bit on this today.